All right, we've spent an awful lot of time dealing with integers. So we went through all of the operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. We keep and continue to practice that now as we've moved into module 3, where we are talking now about rational numbers. So not just integers. Now we're going to add fractions and decimals into the mix. So we've been practicing and practicing with adding and subtracting. And now what I would like to do is dip our steps into multiplying, okay? So we're going to tackle this in 2 days. The first thing we're going to do today is talk about multiplying decimals, okay? So that's kind of one particular part of rational numbers. So let's remember something about multiplication when you have signs, okay? If I have a positive number and I multiply another positive number, the product or the result of that is going to be positive. That's what you've been doing since late second, third grade when you started doing multiplying, okay? If I have a negative times a negative, as we discovered in the last module, this also ends up being positive. If your signs are different when we have two numbers, whether it's positive times a negative or a negative times a positive, then you get a negative answer. Now, hold your horses. That's only 2 numbers at a time, okay? Do 2 numbers at a time. If you have a whole string, then you've got to really pay attention to, all right, every time I have 2 negatives, those will multiply to give a positive value. So you got to watch how many signs, negative signs you've got in there. All right, so let's do a little review here. If I said what's negative 5 times 7, all of these really have 2 steps. The first thing I want you to do is simply look at it and tell me what sign your answer has to be. And since this is a negative and a positive, your answer is going to be a negative. Then off to the side, you're just doing your 5 times 7, boom, 35. Okay? Sweet, all done. So today what we're going to do is get into more challenging rational numbers. So let's apply this same philosophy about signs and change the number value a little bit. This time I'm going to take negative 5 times 7 and 2/10. Hold your horses. Do the sign first. Negative times positive, that means my answer has to be negative. But now, when I multiply these guys, now I would put, since 7 and 2/10 has more digits, I'm going to put that on the top as I multiply and go from here. Okay, now if you learn to multiply lattice way, you go to town and do it your way. I learned to multiply this way, so this is the algorithm that I use. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10, get 36. Now, we have to remember how many decimal places need to go in my answer. There's 1 decimal place here. There aren't any decimal places here. Put 1 in your answer. Oh, this is exactly 36, or 36 and 0/10. Okay, I'm going to leave the 0.0 in there because this number was specific out to the tenths place, so I'm going to leave it there. However, for me, if you answered that as negative 36, you'd be fine. Okay, let's dip our toe in the water and do something a little more challenging. What if I told you, all right, smarty pants, let's do this one. Negative 4 and 2/10 times negative 5 and 1/10. Okay? All right. First thing I want you to decide, what's the sign in my answer? Negative times negative, positive. Now, I write the plus sign there simply because then I remember I took care of evaluating or determining the sign of my answer. Now, in my head, before I even go over here to take 4 and 2/10 and 5 and 1/10, I'm thinking close to 4, close to 5. My answer should be close to 20. Now go ahead and pound it out. Here we go. Oh, I like the ones. That's nice. Please remember to shift everything over 1 space, because when you're multiplying here, it's another place value over. Put the 0 in as your placeholder. 10, carry the 1, 21. Oh, that one wasn't complicated at all, but you need to keep track of decimal places. each one of these had a decimal place, which means your answer is going to go out to the hundredths place too. And that is pretty close to 20. I knew that since both of these are just a tiny bit more, that it'd be a little more than 20, and there you go. Now I want you to open up your book to page 83, I believe. Okay? How do we multiply rational numbers? Okay? Let's stop for a second. What's a rational number? Grab your pencil right now in your book. Write this down. A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. So we're always going to write it this way. Some fraction a over b, where each of these are integers. Okay? Remember what the integers are? That's this big list. I start with the fabulous 5 here, but then we have to continue on into infinity in both directions. Okay? If I can make sure that that happens, and the one specification here or provisor that b can't be 0 because that's against the law. Okay? Here's what we're going to work on today. All right, products of rational numbers. Positive times negative is negative. Negative times positive is negative. Okay, we are going to just tackle decimals and remember decimal multiplication today. Tomorrow we'll get into doing the fraction stuff. All right, so I'm going to bypass this example for a moment, and I want you to hop down to the your turn here. Now, they like to illustrate this with a number line, and you can certainly do that. If I have 2 times negative 3.5, that means I have to measure out negative 3.5 from here to here. And then I'm going to have another negative 3.5. So there would be, well, there'd be half, and then another 1 and 2 and 3. And you'd land right there at negative 7. Okay? Or without the visual, and when our numbers get larger, it's definitely going to be more cumbersome to use that number line. Take 3.5 times 2. You already determined, different signs means negative answer, and go ahead and multiply this out. You get 7, or 7 and 0/10. Okay? Turn the page. Boom. Okay? Now we talk about same sign. See, back on this page, it was, what if you had different signs? Different signs, negative answer. Top of page 84, same signs, positive answer. So look at the same problem here in example 2. Oh, but it's a little bit different in the sense that this is a negative sign. Okay, on a number line, you could think negative 3.5, negative 3.5. We have 2 of those, so you know that 2 times negative 3.5 was negative 7. So now if I say, what's negative 2 times negative 3.5? That's like saying the opposite of whatever this was. That's why you get the positive 7. Okay? So they kind of go through this process of flipping it around or taking the opposite and finding that value over here on the number line. But I'm totally fine with you jumping right to this stage now if you've got it. Same sign, positive answer, multiply the absolute values. Take a look at, let me get this up on the screen higher, negative 3 times negative 1 and 25/100. The signs are the same, which means your final product will be positive. Okay? Come over here. I'm going to put 1 and 25/100 on top because that has more digits. Doesn't really matter when we multiply which order we do it in. That's a commutative property, it's called, where you can change the order and you still get the same answer. Okay? All right. Now, I suppose that I could take negative 1 1/4, which would be 1 1/4, which would be halfway here, and then take another 1 1/4. Where am I going? See, this gets even complicated for me because I know that I have to go the quarter, and then I have to go 1, and then I have to go another quarter, and then another 1. And it looks like I end up here, okay? But because this was also a negative sign, then they're saying find the opposite of this, which is going to be up here. Between you and me, that's kind of complicated when we start getting these decimal parts. I would much rather tackle it this way. 2 decimal places, no decimal places. 2 in my answer. 3 and 75/100ths. That's right. And that looks like that's where that guy landed. All right. Now, on the next page, they're going to deal a lot with fractions. We're going to come back to that tomorrow. What I want you to do, okay, is this, I believe, is page 86. So, on page 86, we're going to hop around. Actually, this goes like page 86 to 88. We're only going to do selected problems today. So, on the top of your paper, let's start writing these ones down. I've got them highlighted. Maybe you want to circle them on your paper. 5 through 10. That's the first chunk. Okay. Then on this page, we're going to pick it up at 15 and go through 17. And then also on the next page, you could go through 19. So I want you to do 15 to 19. And then it looks like I picked up also questions 21 and 22. 21 and 22. Okay, that's your assignment for tomorrow. Notice, I don't want you to cross out any of these other problems. We're going to tackle the fraction ones next, but get through these ones right now. Okay? Good luck, and as always, may the force be with you.